We've been having an amazing ground campaign so far. We've knocked on over 80,000 doors, we've letterboxed whole districts, and we've spoken to tens of thousands of people as well. So this is our last big chance to really get out to thousands of people about the message about why a socialist in Parliament will be able to fight around social justice questions, standing up to racism, trying to fight around the environment, supporting LGBTI rights, and also is going to fight around class questions as well. You know, trying to tackle the housing crisis, putting public transport, electricity and gas back into public hands. And this is also somebody that's going to actually try and transform and shake up politics by saying that we want people in Parliament who are actually going to fight for ordinary people. And so let's get that message out to thousands of people today. We're going around Northcote and we're going around Brunswick. These are two areas that are being hotly contested by the Greens and by the Labor Party. So we need to make it clear to people who probably never heard of the Victorian Socialists before that even though they may have made up their mind that they're supporting Greens or Labor in the lower house, they can still vote for the Victorian Socialists in the upper house. We're not fielding candidates in the lower house. We only have a candidate in the upper house for this district, for both Northcote and for Brunswick. If you see corflutes on people's houses that say, I'm voting Greens or I'm voting Labor, you should go into that house and make a case, because they're probably politically engaged, identify themselves as being somewhat progressive, and we really want to make the case that it matters that they vote for us in the upper house.
We do want to as well be talking about the absolute scandal that is going on at this election, whereby behind closed doors preference deals involving every single party in this campaign, except for ours, stand to elect tiny micro parties on as low as 0.3% of the vote in upper house seats across Victoria, including the seat here in Northern Metro that we're going for. So what that means is that there's all these Drury parties that are preferencing to each other, but Labor and the Greens as well are preferencing these micro parties above each other in a number of seats. And Fiona Patton, who's been campaigning against Glenn Drury, has also put the right-wing misogynist Liberal Democrats ahead of the Greens and Labor in every single seat. So we need to be saying to people, one, the only party you can trust with your preferences that they'll go to progressive parties if we don't win is Victorian Socialists. We're the only party that you can trust on that. Second, we need to be saying that we need people's first preference votes. That the Drury model of getting small parties elected by behind closed doors deals is the opposite of what we're doing. What we are doing is going out, door knocking, postering, talking to people about politics, trying to build a left-wing campaign around this election based on political conviction. That's only going to work. We're only going to get elected if people put us on their how to vote, because the whole game is rigged against us by all of the other parties.
Well, early voting started Monday, 6 days ago, and we're killing it. You know, in the northern suburbs, it's really the major parties and us, so the only people out in the polling booths. There's no Greens, there's no Reason, there's none of these micro right-wing parties, and we're positioning ourselves correctly as the party of anti-establishment. And we're picking up a lot of votes there, more votes than we thought we would, we think. In the middle bit of this seat, your Brunswicks and your Northcotes, which are probably more politically aware, more left-wing. Because it's so contested between the Greens and the Labor Party, we're getting a bit squeezed there, but we are definitely getting some votes. And then in the south side of the electorate, for example, in my district in Richmond, we're just absolutely killing it. That's our stronghold, obviously, but we're literally bussing in people from the public housing estates to vote for us. So we think that we're going to get a very respectable first preference vote. Whether it's enough to overcome the Drury preference we'll have to see.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about, the preferences deals amongst the micro parties. What's your view on that?
Well, it's hidden democracy. It's veiled dictatorship. You vote for somebody, but your vote doesn't mean anything because that person's not going to get elected. But where they put your vote is important. It'll either go to the Labour Party, it'll either go to the Liberal Party, it'll either go somewhere else, and you've got no say on that. So basically your vote, you're handing over to somebody with a fake name that's just trying to pull you in to vote for them. For example, the Aussie Battler Party. I mean, what the hell is that? It's nothing. It doesn't exist. It's just a paper name. And then they give you a vote behind your back to either the Labour or the Liberal or whatever it is without you knowing about it. It's absolutely outrageous. It's a distortion of democracy. So we need to have to smash that right up. We haven't played any of those games, and we're preferencing from left to right.
There's a real mood of frustration, I think, and frustration that can manifest as either a real disconnection from politics, sort of, people that can understandably think, well, it just doesn't matter. A lot of older people in particular, middle-aged people, I've been voting for years, nothing really seems to change. The people I vote for, either they're not the party that they used to be, or, I vote for them, but I kind of hold my nose when I do it. That sort of resignation, we want to sort of connect with that frustration. We want to sort of say to people, well, there's a reason why that's the case, because there's money in politics, and really all of the main political parties in Australia, they're in bed with big business in one way or another. So there's real limits to the kind of progressive policies that they could advocate for, even if they sincerely wanted to fight for those things. So there's that resignation. Then we meet people as well who have a real fire and are actually rapt, and sort of jump on the opportunity to hear about a party that is new, that wants to fight, that agrees that the system's a bit rigged, and that wants to fight for something better that's going to put people before profit.
We've been able to door knock about the majority of the Brunswick district. The response has been really positive, particularly with the issues of a 5-year rent freeze. A lot of young people are incredibly interested in this, because it's a lot of young people who have actually gone without because prices in rent are going up so much. So yeah, it's been a really positive response.
That's too many. Which other place? Where'd you have calling cards?
Word, Fulham.
Cemetery, is it Northcote?
I just grabbed it. I'll give them back in a second. I'm going to extra.
Who came here as a refugee. As soon as I opened the door, he said, I'm a Liberal Party supporter, I don't want you to talk to me. And I said, just at least keep the pamphlet. He wouldn't keep the pamphlet either, but I try to engage in a conversation. See, I know he shouldn't be supporting Liberals. Liberals are not for him. So I try to have a conversation with him, and he's like, I used to, I try to talk about Hewen, the woman who's being kept in Broadmeadows Detention Centre and facing deportation, but he's like, Vietnamese shouldn't be coming here as refugees. So I changed the topic and I talked about where he worked. And I found out that he's unemployed, and he's unemployed because GM Bolton, decided to take jobs away from Australians, and so try to have a conversation about that, and all of a sudden he was so interested. He realized at the end of the conversation, Liberal Party is for the corporations, not for people like him, and he's unemployed looking for a job, and he never saw the alternative in the Labor Party, and so he agreed to not only take the pamphlet, but he's actually going to read it, so that was a good experience, and it was actually towards the end, that was one of the houses I knocked in the last minute.
Could have missed it.
There's a good argument for people about wanting to put a left-winger into Parliament to stand up to the government when they're, attacking minorities. People have an understanding that we need to keep the right out. Even people who want to vote for Greens and Labor are happy to put us first in the upper house, to put a socialist, a fighter into Parliament.
What sort of issues did people bring up today?
People don't really bring up issues on the door. Yeah.
What sort of issues did you bring up?
I brought up issues about reversing the privatisation of the Kennett era, bringing the public, the energy grid back into public hands to lower the cost of utilities. We want to fight for a transition to renewable energy. We want to fight for public housing and to resist the racism of the two major parties.
We've definitely found a lot of people who are interested in Victorian Socialists. So the whole poster campaign, the leafleting of the stations, the letterboxing, all of that brought us to the attention of a lot of people. So a lot of people, I think, who maybe have been voting Greens but would really prefer something a bit better, are really considering us this time. And I think it is because of the left groups getting together, which makes us a much bigger force. for this election campaign. And we're definitely getting, every time we go out, we're getting people who say they're voting for us, or else having very good conversations with people who are interested in voting for us.
Pick up a roll.